All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Math 005, Lesson 2, Part 6. And I want to go over real briefly some problems off of the in-class work that's available. I want to do one or two problems off of both 1.3 and 1.4 before I move on to Lesson 3. All right, so I'm going to start off with, let's do this. Oops. Got to put my pen on first before I can do much of anything. All right, so I'm going to have a square bracket here, 3 times -2 squared minus 2, and I'm going to have a -3 squared. And that whole thing is going to be cubed. All right, so we've got a couple of layers that we have to address before we can do anything else. Everything inside this square brackets we need to address before we can do anything with this cube. And obviously in here we have a bunch of things happening. We have multiplication, we have an exponent, a couple exponents, we've got a subtraction happening. In each of those cases, we still need to operate with our order of operations. We do the order of operations, and then once that's done, we come back out and we start the next layer of order of operations. And I know that that sounds like a lot, but as you get used to doing it, it's not so bad. Just so that you guys are aware, this is off of the in-class assignment for 1.3. It's number 8. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and multiply these out and do what I need to do. I'm going to start with my innermost first, right? So that's these two. And I have an exponent on both of those. I don't have anything I can do inside those parentheses. So I'm going to just work with my exponents at the moment. All right, so I'm going to just copy everything else down. I'm going to have my -2. I'm going to square that, and then I'm going to have... All right, so now I've got this -2 times -2, which is going to give me a +4. And then I'm going to have a -3 times a -3, which is going to give me a +9, right? Because if it's a negative times a negative, it's going to give me a positive, right? And that's only true if I'm multiplying or dividing. It doesn't follow if you're using addition and subtraction. We should talk about that here at some point in the near future. All right, so now I've got my exponents taken care of. I'm going to do my multiplication and division. And remember, I'm doing those at the same time. I'm going from left to right at the same time. Whichever would show up first, that's what I deal with. So in this case, I'm going to have a 12 minus 18. And I'm going to leave these as square brackets just so that you can see what all is happening. These pieces here are addressed, and now I'm going to cube that whole thing. Here I'm going to go ahead and do my subtraction. That's going to give me a -6, and that whole thing is going to be cubed. All right. So my -6 times -6 is going to give me a +36 times -6. All right, and when I go ahead and do that, I'm going to wind up with a -216. All right, so that is how we would go about doing this particular problem. I'd also like to address one that is a fraction, has some exponents happening, has some things happening inside parentheses. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to write that up right now. This is actually, again, from 1.3. It's number 13. And I'm going to start this here at 7 squared minus a -1 to the 5th power. And I have my denominator is going to be 3 minus 2 times 3 squared plus 5. All right. And one thing I want you all to know, you can treat these as though they're separate pieces. You can do all the numerator first or all the denominator first. You're going to need to do both, but you don't have to do them like all at the same time, which can be helpful. It feels a little less intimidating when you're addressing one piece at a time. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my numerator first. And I'm going to just copy my denominator down. So it's 3 minus 2 times 3 squared plus 5. All right, all I did was I just recopied this. This is exactly the same thing. I didn't do anything at all with my denominator. Now 7 times 7 is going to give me a 49. Well, negative 1 to the 5th power, whenever I have an even number and I'm operating on a negative value, like if I have a negative exponent or a negative number with an even exponent on it, my number is going to become positive because negative 1 times negative 1 is going to give me a positive 1, right? Similarly, if I have an odd numbered exponent and it's operating on a negative number, my result has to be negative, right? Because a negative 1 times 1, right? Because 1 times 1 is negative 1 times negative 1 is going to give me a positive 1. And then I multiply it once more by a negative, that's going to give me a negative value. So in this case, I'm going to have 49 minus a negative 1. All right. So taking a look at this, remember I've got my double negative here. So I've got my 49 plus 1 all over my 3 minus 2 times 3 squared plus 5. So I'm going to have a 50. And I'm going to go ahead and start this. I'm going to take a look. I've got no parentheses, but I do have an exponent here. So I'm going to have my 3 minus 2 times 9, right? 3 times 3 is going to give me 9. And then plus 5. And so now I've got my numerator still 50. We're doing good there. And I'm going to take this. I'm doing my multiplication first, which may feel a little odd because you normally read left to right and most people want to just jump in and do it. Remember, you have to do it in the order of operations. So my 3 and the negative is going to just stay right where it is. 2 times 9 is going to give me an 18 plus 5. All right, now I've got my addition and subtraction. I've taken care of all of my exponents. I've taken care of all of my multiplication division. Now I'm going to just go ahead and work with my addition and subtraction. Remember, I'm doing it at the same time from left to right. So 3 minus 18 is going to give me a negative 15. And then plus 5. If I have a negative 15 plus 5, that means I have a negative 10. And here, I can cancel out my 10s, right? I've got a 50 and I've got a 10. That's going to become a negative 5. And that's my answer. All right. I'm going to call this good and pick up with some problems from 1.4.